The writing on the wall says the majority of the world's largest nations are potentially headed towards a recession. US economists agree that the US is in store for a recession in 2023. I mean, just look at this. Year over year, US consumer price increases expectedly surged last month to 8.6%. That means that the Federal Reserve's effort to slow down the economy over the past few months through two different interest rate hikes have yet to bear a measurable effect on inflation. With more experts sounding the alarm over inflation and the Fed gearing up for even more aggressive action, economists are becoming increasingly convinced that the economy will come to a grinding halt and begin contracting soon. This will likely happen next year, according to a recent survey of 49 US macroeconomic experts conducted at the beginning of June by the Financial Times and the Initiative on Global Markets, an economic policy and market research center at the University of Chicago. Now, with the understanding that there is a likelihood that this will potentially happen, and even if it doesn't, it is vital that you prepare best for the possibility. In this video, I will go through 7 steps that you should take to ensure that your finances are recession-proof. Step 1. Pay down high-interest credit card balances. When emergencies hit, you want to eliminate as many of your monthly expenses as possible. And among the costliest one for your budget are high-interest debt payments. That is even more true at the time when the Federal Reserve is likely to lift its key borrowing benchmark 7 times this year. The Fed's interest rate, known as the federal funds rate, influences all other forms of short-term borrowing. High-interest debt commonly comes from credit cards. Even when the Fed's rate was at its lowest, the average credit card annual percentage rate, APR, hovered close to 16%, according to bank rate data. Carrying a balance from month to month could potentially cost you hundreds, if not thousands, more a month. Eliminating that debt could free up crucial breathing room in your budget that you could use to bolster your emergency fund. A February 2022 Bankrate poll found that 22% of Americans have more credit card debt than savings. Being in a position where you've eliminated those high-cost obligations allows you to prepare better for other things financially. The more you're able to put aside for saving and the less debt you have, it's going to relate in more being available to you in a case of an emergency. Step 2. Assess your individual financial situation before paying off other debt. US households have more than just credit card debt. Americans also have $10.93 trillion total in mortgage debt, $1.58 trillion in student loan debt, and $1.46 trillion in worth in auto loans, and also $318 billion in home equity lines of credit, according to the New York Fed survey of household debt and credit for the first quarter of 2022. But it might not make sense for consumers to concentrate on paying down debt that have been relatively low interest rates and attractive provisions. One example could be student loans. According to Greg McBride, CFA, Bankrate Chief Financial Analyst, borrowers are often able to negotiate a temporary payment plan or apply for forbearance in the event of an unexpected job loss. Though rules differ for private lenders, another case in point, federal borrowers' payments have been on pause for more than 2 years in light of coronavirus pandemic. Just take a look at your emergency fund. If you don't have much cash that you should be able to use in an event of an unexpected job loss, you might want to consider allocating extra money towards your savings account instead. A lack of savings might be another reason why a consumer keeps incurring credit card debt. A January Bankrate poll found that less than half of Americans, or 44%, could cover an unplanned $1,000 expense with their savings. If an emergency arises and you're putting every dollar towards eliminating debt, then you have no choice but to go back to credit cards to cover the expense. And everyone needs to have a cash cushion. Financial experts recommend storing 6 months' worth of expenses in liquid and accessible accounts as a crucial cushion to cover emergencies, job loss, or even pay cuts. Step 3. Build a substantial emergency fund. Jobless Americans can often turn to unemployment insurance for help with income. How much each individual receives depends on the state, but typically the general is about 30 to 50% of workers' wages are replaced with the assistance program, according to the National Bureau of Economic Research. That's unless the Congress enhances the program, as lawmakers did during the coronavirus pandemic. Assembling 6 months' worth of expenses can seem like a daunting task, but don't underestimate the power of small contributions. Regularly adding to your savings account over time can build the crucial saving habits. Better yet, automate your contributions to put the process on autopilot. Next comes the important step of deciding where to park your cash. Savings accounts from online banks often offer yields that are 10 times the national average. Shop around for the best account that suits your needs and your lifestyle. Step 4. Identify ways to cut back. If you're looking to free up cash that you can recycle back into your savings account, it's always a good idea to go through your monthly expenses and identify which items are discretionary, services or items that you can live without, and which items are necessities. The discretionary lines are most likely the ones you can either eliminate now or in the future. Experts typically recommend spending no more than 30% of your net income, that is the earnings after tax, on discretionary items. It is a good idea to create a monthly budget to ensure that you're living within your means and not overspending. Doing so when the economy is strong could help set you up for success during bad economic times. You have to pay your rent, you have to pay your car insurance, you have to eat to live. Your groceries, utilities, those are all going to be essential expenses. But dining out, vacations, cable, Netflix, anything like that you would potentially consider a luxury or a lifestyle expense, that's discretionary spending. Step 5. Don't make knee-jerk reactions with your investments. A downturn might seem synonymous with a plunging stock market, since companies often find it hard to hire, expand, and invest when times are tough. Even worse, they might decide to start laying workers off. But changing your strategy during a recession would be the worst thing you could do. That goes for all individuals, whether they're 20 or just 2 years away from retiring. It will take a tough stomach, because in a recession, a stock market will easily fall, potentially 30 to 40%. Peak through trough, but making regular contributions and reinvesting all your distributions will make the market regeneration work to your benefit. A recession is a tremendous buying opportunity. If you're planning on retiring in the next few years, consider having your first few years of withdrawals already in hand, in cash. But even then, don't shy away from keeping equities in your portfolio. Those are often where you get the best returns on adjusted for inflation, a concern that many Americans have to grapple with after prices in February soared by the fastest rate in 40 years. Do not make changes that jeopardize your long-term financial security basis on a short-term economic event. Even for someone who is at the cusp of retirement, retirement is going to last 25 to 30 years. A recession is going to last a year. Even so, markets don't always behave the way you'd expect. After plunging nearly 31% in March 2020, the S&P 500 took off like a rocket during the corona pandemic, hitting 70 fresh all-time highs in 2021 alone, despite the economy being in the worst recession since the Great Depression. A large part of that was the Fed's go big or go home efforts to revive the ailing economy, which instilled confidence in investors. Step 6. Think about your career and earning opportunities. To recession-proof your career, one of the best investments you can make is pursuing an education, says Tom. During recessions, the unemployment rate for those with a bachelor's degree or higher is much lower than those who have a high school education or less. About 2% of workers with a bachelor's degree or higher were unemployed in March, compared to the 4% of high school graduates and 5.2% of those without a high school diploma, according to the Department of Labor. Networking and maintaining strong connections with workers in your field could also help you find new opportunities. Better yet, strengthening your skill set and pursuing more training could make you more marketable in your field. Consumers might also be able to use today's robust labor market to their advantage. Joblessness is at a near half-decade low, and employers have been looking to fill a near record number of jobs for 13 straight months. Companies are responding to the labor shortage by boosting wages. People who switched to new jobs were able to secure the highest pay gains in the year, with their wages up 5% from a year ago, compared to the 3.8% for job stayers, according to the Atlanta Fed's wage growth tracker. That extra cash could be crucial to boosting your income at a time when consumers are losing their purchasing power at the fastest rate since 1982. That extra cash you earn could also be deposited back into your savings. Economists are always emphasizing the importance of education. Even if you can't build up a financial buffer, focusing on making sure that you have some training and skills that are broadly going to be employable is really crucial. Step 7. Don't panic. Recessions are inevitable, but they're not always as bad as the coronavirus pandemic or the Great Recession. Recession is a scary word for Americans, or just people in general, who've lived through back-to-back, once-in-a-lifetime recessions, the coronavirus pandemic and Great Recession before it. Even worse, attempting to predict a downfall will set even the experts up for failure. No event illustrates that more than the coronavirus crisis. At the beginning of 2020, economists hadn't even considered that a global outbreak could wreck the US economy's longest expansion on record. Though most economists would lump two causes for a recession into a supply shock or demand shocks, each of the past 33 recessions, as tracked by the NBER Business Cycle Dating Committee, have been caused by something a little different. Some people say economists exist to make the weather forecasters look good. We can't predict with any kind of confidence what's going to happen, particularly when things are changing dramatically. Obviously, if recessions were easily predictable and preventable, would have expected policymakers to be doing just that. The two basic definitions of a recession is a drop in output for 2 consecutive quarters. Simply put, the start of a recession is the point at which the economy is contracting, not growing. But not all downturns create economic growth and cause double-digit unemployment. In the aftermath of a recession in early 2000s, nationwide unemployment peaked at 6.3%. The recession before that, joblessness rose to a high of 7.8%. Taking steps to prepare your wallet for a downturn when times are good can help take away some of the stresses and worry surrounding recessions. And rest assured, even if economists can't predict recessions, they almost always know when the US economy is in the middle of one. I don't think there's ever a bad time to evaluate their finances and check in themselves. If someone personally feels nervous that there's change on the horizon, it's always a good time to say, what can I personally do to put myself in a stronger financial position so that I can sleep better at night when the time potentially comes? Hopefully this video has helped understand the potential upcoming recessions and provided some valuable steps on how you can make your finances as strong as possible to protect the future self. Leave all your thoughts in the comments and leave a like and subscribe for more finance and business related content.